It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
And a fine Saturday morning to you, Steve.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the Saturday Matinée. This is our show for all of our wonderful Patreon supporters, who we thank greatly for the support that they give us. And here we are. We're going to chat a little bit about movies.
You're back. You were voiceless last week. We had to do the show without you.
On my birthday, I lost my voice. I woke up and I had no voice. Went for about 5 days before I finally was kind of fully back.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting birthday present. You and summer colds. I don't know what happens out there on the west side of town, but I don't get summer colds out here. I don't know if it's the kids giving them to you or what, but it seems like every year you get these summer colds that take you out of commission for a couple of days.
You know, my body doesn't like big changes in temperature, and going from the cold AC to the hot temperatures outside, it just beats me up.
Oh, okay.
And so it weakens my immune system, and down I fall.
All right. We didn't get to touch base with you last week. Have you seen anything of interest, anything entertaining, any picks to recommend?
Well, I saw the big ones. I saw Mission Impossible Fallout, which I completely loved. Definitely look forward to seeing that one again. I also took the kids to see Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which I have to say is a complete treat. In the world of really dour DC superhero movies, it was like a complete 180. It was probably the most fun you could have at a DC movie. And they throw in like every DC character, like Swamp Thing is in there, like Jonah Hex is in there.
So, are your kids fans of the TV show Teen Titans Go?
No, I don't think. Well, and I think it's been off the air, at least the way that, because it ends in like a, I guess you could call it like a Marvel mid-sequence sort of thing, where it's the Teen Titans from the TV show who are like breaking in, like, we think we found a way to return. And then the transmission gets cut off, and I think that they're setting up something for a return to TV, which I don't know enough about them to know all of that, but that seemed to be the case.
Okay.
So, but they know enough of the characters that they still completely enjoyed it. You know, like they know the main cast. The fact that they didn't really know who the Teen Titans were, I don't think kept them from enjoying fart jokes. So
nothing can get in the way of enjoying fart jokes. That's
exactly
okay.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. You know, I'm still playing Oscar catch-up, trying to watch all the movies that have been nominated for Best Picture. And so just watched 1977's The Goodbye Girl, and which I enjoyed. I enjoyed a bit. I wasn't sure if I would get into it because Neil Simon often, when he writes, can feel very stagey. And it started that way, but it ended up okay. So... Have you ever seen that one?
That is one that I have not seen. And I think it's just I'm not a Neil Simon fan, and I think it was, I guess the opportunity I had again was at the video store in high school, and there was lots of things to catch up on, and as a teenager in high school, that's just not a movie that, you know, is high on your list. And it's just one that I've never really gotten around to. I mean, Richard Dreyfuss, you know, big fan, but yeah, it's just
Yeah, that was my thought going into it. But I will say Richard Dreyfuss is really the reason that movie is anything. He was so good. And I guess at the time he won the Oscar for Best Actor, and he was at the time 30 and the youngest man to win a Best Actor Oscar.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's okay.
Which strikes me funny that a 30-year-old was the youngest at that point. So what about you? What have you been up to?
I did get out to see the Mission Impossible Fallout and really, really enjoyed that. Although, watching the trailer, I didn't think was going to, have any impact on my viewing of the film. But I found this is why I don't watch trailers, because I see things in the trailer and then I'm in the back of my mind, I am like, okay, we're this far in the movie, but this hasn't happened yet that I saw in the trailer. So, okay, we've got more to come. And there's that moment that I forget if it was the first trailer ends where he's going to like collide into the side of a truck. And I'm like, okay, we're near the end of the movie. that hasn't happened. Okay, there's got to be they're going to put in another chase scene because this movie is packed with action. And then it ended. I thought, wait, I got cheated. I wanted to see how he got out of that. I'm going to collide at the side of a truck and at the last minute escape. And I was denied that. And I was a little disappointed, but I can only blame myself for that one. I was really just enjoying this because it's the first time in this franchise where they continued a story. It's been very episodic, and this one to continue the story from the previous film, from Rogue Nation, I thought they did a really nice job of continuing that story. I feel like I almost don't need any more Mission Impossible after this. I don't know where they go. If they're going to, of course they're going to do more, but to me this was a great, sort of two-part story in the franchise that I really enjoyed, because I think it cut down on so much exposition and having to set up everything in the beginning of the film. You don't have to, here's this new bad guy, here's this whole new thing. They had a little bit of that to do. But for me, it was just easy to get things moving along with this. And I think that just, to me, contributed to just a great pacing in this film.
Yeah, it worked exceedingly well. And I also liked that they had enough connections kind of to the other films in the franchise to really, even though it's really is like a continuation of that story, like you mentioned, but they still found a way to kind of keep that thread going, like the mention of Max from the first film, and even just the characters that we've seen through so many of the films just kind of continuing forward. I really enjoy the way that franchise has developed. So, and yes, you only have yourself to blame for the trailer. You should know by now, Steve, you've been watching movies long enough, that it happens all the time. There are always shots in trailers that don't make it in the film.
Yes.
And it's just one of those things that I've given up on worrying about. I just acknowledge that it's there and say, well, maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't.
Okay. Has anybody ever? It seems like something that would happen in a comedy, to make a trailer of everything that is not in the movie.
Boy,
it seems like something like a Will Ferrell movie would do, like do an Anchorman movie, and the trailer is just scenes that aren't in the movie at all.
Like the whole thing is just cuts.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So to completely just throw an audience off their tracks.
That'd be a very difficult spoof sort of thing to do.
Yes, it would be.
There are teasers out there where it's something that, like, it's them talking to the screen that's obviously not going to be in the film. Like the new Jungle Cruise teaser, which is just Emily Blunt.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's just it's just
okay.
Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson kind of talking to the audience, letting them know how much fun it's going to be, basically. It's like Team Disney just needed to get something out, and so just shot the two of them on the back lot while they were waiting for, they're between takes or something.
Oh, okay. No, that one did not come up on my list. It was tough to find a trailer for this weekend. There was not a whole lot out there to choose from that I could find for trailers, and that one didn't even come up on my radar. So was that just like late yesterday that one showed up?
Well, I don't know when it was released, but I mean, I searched for trailers late yesterday, so it's entirely possible it was just dropped. But and weirdly, when I searched for my trailers, it wasn't high on the list. It was down deep, so it's kind of an odd one. But again, it's kind of, I don't know, it's one of those weird trailers where I don't know how many people are going to be that excited to watch it, because it is just the two of them on screen, and it's really just kind of getting a sense of their chemistry, which they had. It was fun watching the two of them together.
I'll have to check that out, since it's not going to spoil anything for the movie for me on that one.
It definitely won't. So, well, speaking of trailers, let's jump in. Why don't you go first, since you already mentioned you were struggling here?
Yeah, so I actually went back. This one came out a couple weeks ago, and I had to go back to check to make sure we hadn't talked about it, because I thought we would have, but then I realized we were sort of on a hiatus for a while, I think, when this one came out. And this is the remake of Suspiria. Well, I guess it's a remake. But the story is slightly different from the trailer. I see a trailer that reminds me of the original Suspiria. It has this great look, this great feel that I said, yes, it's very Suspiria, but there's a lot of scenes in this trailer that I don't recall, parallel events in the original. So I looked, and it's a complete, rewriting of the story, but this is from director, I'm going to butcher all of these names, directed by Luca Guadagnino. Who directed Call Me By Your Name, so completely different genres here. But written by David Kajanich, who has some roots in horror. He wrote the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig, which I have not seen, but I think, did you do an Invasion of the Body Snatchers where you watched all of the different versions?
I did. What was that one just called? Invasion?
Yeah, that was just called Invasion, yeah.
They all have things going for them.
Yeah.
That one is my least favorite, but it's still, even with that,
Okay.
it still had some interesting elements.
Okay, but he is also writing the new adaptation of Pet Sematary. I guess they're remaking that one. But so for this trailer, for me, it captures the spirit and feel of the original. You and I saw that, was that last fall? We went out and saw that 4K restoration. And so I was really surprised at how well it conjured up all these images and feelings of that, sort of giallo horror. So I'm really excited about this because it has that look and feel. It's a new story, but it's still tied to a world-renowned dance company and strange things going on there. I'm excited about this one. It's going to be hit in theaters November 2nd. So right there after Halloween.
Plus Jessica Harper is in this one as well.
Yes.
Which is great. Yeah, this the vibe of the trailer, it definitely doesn't have like that amazing Dario Argento look that the first one has, with just the wild color palette and everything. Nor does it have the Goblin score, which is a key element. But it has so much of the vibe. It really feels of kind of that same world. And that's what I really love about this trailer. And I love at least what it looks like from this trailer that Luca is doing with the story. And it's not, he's basically is taking that Argento story and tone, and he's finding a way to create his own tone and story, really inspired by what Argento did. And so it feels very much of the same world, even though it feels so completely different. And that's what I really, really like about it, because it just, watching this trailer, I'm like, wow, this is a remake I'm actually really excited to see now. Yeah.
I wanted to mention that although we don't have that sort of iconic score from the original, Tom York from Radiohead is doing the music for this one, so I am interested to get a sense of what sort of the soundscape is going to be on this, because he is a very, I guess, unusual musician, very experimental, so I'll be interested to see how that fits in with this. So yeah, I think maybe you and I go out and check this one out together.
Yeah, absolutely. Has he done any other film scores? I'm trying to think.
Tom York, the guys it's mostly Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead does a lot of, works on a lot of things, but I will take a look, and I know a lot of Radiohead songs show up in movies. I don't see any feature films that he is credited for, so this would be, looks like his first score.
Well, I am, count me in. So yes, we'll have to go see this and before we go to the Goblin show to watch the
live,
live performance.
So,
yes, looking forward to that as well. Excellent. All right. Well, my trailer, when Moonlight came out, it actually took me quite a while to finally see that one. I finally ended up having to rent that one because I completely missed it in theaters. But I'm kind of a little disappointed in myself that I didn't see it in theaters, because it was a powerful film. It really struck a chord with me. I just loved what Barry Jenkins did with that story. It was really beautifully told. Seeing the trailer for his new film that he has coming out, If Beale Street Could Talk, really... it's interesting because the trailer doesn't give you much. It's hard to get a sense of what the story's about It just kind of gives you a tone, and I'm wondering if there's going to be another trailer that will give you a little bit more than this one does. But regardless, the story is a powerful one. It's a story about a young couple who kind of fall in love. They get engaged, and then her boyfriend, or her fiance, is falsely accused of rape, and he gets put in prison. And that at the same time, she finds out she's pregnant. And then it's really about her and her family trying to find the evidence to free him before she has the baby. You don't get any of that from this trailer, but you do get this sense of the family and the sense of the relationship and the sense of the pain when he's put in prison, and just kind of the struggle of trying to find that strength in family when something happens. And plus you get the words coming through of James Baldwin, who wrote the book that this is based on. And, it just really struck a chord with me again. And I feel that Barry Jenkins is one of those filmmakers who has found a way to just tap into an inner voice with his characters that I find really powerful, and I really connect with it. So, and plus it just looks like a really well-made movie. We've got Kiki Lane and Stephen James as our leads. And then you have... Regina King is in there, Dave Franco's in there, Diego Luna pops in. So I don't know. I'm really excited about this one. I do hope that there's a little more meat in some other trailers, but just at this point, that when the name Barry Jenkins is attached to a film, I'm interested. So what do you think of this one?
Yeah, this was a really powerful trailer, the way that this was just pieced together. Yeah, it is non-narrative, but for me, it is really capturing the sense of this era and just the conflict, the trauma, just so many. This is just emotion coming through in this trailer, and just looks gorgeous. Just capturing, the 70s there, the look, the feel, everything. This is not one that I would typically say, oh yeah, this is a, very, high interest, film. But I think I really enjoyed Moonlight. I think he's a really, an up and coming director that everybody needs to keep their eyes on, because I think seeing what he's done with this trailer, I am expecting just continued, just really powerful emotional films from him that really connect character, pieces. And I love films like that. So yeah, this one is very much on my list to see, because it's going to rip my heart out. I know it, but I love when that is done well.
Yeah, definitely. Did you see the documentary "I Am Not Your Negro" about James Baldwin?
No, I have not seen that yet. No.
It was interesting. I enjoyed the experience, I guess, of learning more about James Baldwin and who he was. But and I know a lot of people loved it. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary. But man, did I just find it tedious? It was like a lecture. It was sitting in and watching somebody read an essay. It's like, oh my God, this is really boring. But I still enjoyed learning more about Baldwin and who he was. But that was more of kind of a personal essay that he had written that the documentary is based on. This is one of his fiction works, and so I'm very much looking forward to it. It looks like this one is actually going to have its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival in September next month, and then it's going to be released in theaters November 30th. So there you go.
There we are. All right,
man. It's time for our lists.
Okay.
Yes, 2001 is the film that Pete and I duked it out over on the show this week.
So, should the list really be movies you love and that Pete hates? Because it was, that was epic flick charting. I think that's the flick charting that goes down There will be conspiracy theorists because accusations. And Andy just he was bribed, he was paid off. Nobody can rock paper scissors that poorly, that consistently because he must have thrown the match. Pete bribed him. There was something, because that was so just eerie.
Oh, and it broke my heart every time. It was so frustrating. But yes, I learned I definitely need to go to rock, paper, scissors school because I clearly was not hitting it.
But we ended up with humans versus computers.
That's where we landed.
That's where we landed on our category for this list. Okay.
So, shall I kick it off?
Go ahead and kick it off, and I'm sure there's going to... we'll see. I have some, but I have a feeling there's going to be lots of stealing back and forth here.
I have some on my list that I know are going to be on both of our lists. But this first one, I can almost guarantee will only be on my list.
Okay.
Because it's a film that I totally loved when I was young. And I've never gone back to rewatch it, and I really don't think I should because I almost guarantee it's probably terrible. But I had so much fun with Electric Dreams.
Oh my wife is going to love you. It's one of her favorite movies from that era. Just, oh yeah. Okay.
But the funny thing is, I hardly remember it, but it's weirdly a film that has just latched onto my brain. And I don't know if it's because the movie poster, I think, was just such a beautifully iconic movie poster with the drawing of the computer with the little devil horns and tail and that wicked smile on its screen. Yeah. I always loved that image. But it was a film that I think I probably saw more often because at the time we had HBO and it was just one of those films that probably cropped up a lot. And it's a film about a guy who buys a computer to help him with his ideas, and he kind of it becomes his best friend, and then it turns into this weird story where the computer ends up, it's like a weird love triangle between him and this cellist who lives next door and the computer. And it's this really strange, completely weird love triangle story that involves the computer as one of the people in the love triangle. Very weird. But man, I really loved it. And I think doesn't the computer try to, I can't remember if it tries to kill one of them, but it ends up killing itself. It turns his electronics in his house against him. I can't remember really, but it was just weird, and I just remember loving it when I was a kid. So that's my first choice, Steve Barron's 1984 classic Electric Dreams.
Well, I guess it's a classic of that era, and I think the reason that film stands out is it's taking sort of what was probably considered more of a sci-fi concept of a computer that becomes self-aware, and it sort of turns his apartment into a smart house because it takes control of everything, and putting that into a romantic comedy story. So it's you're meshing two genres together that don't normally collide that way, and it's the 80s. So technology was really exciting as a young kid to see things like computers in movies that were they were smart and they could do things, they could communicate with you. It was this is what the future was going to be like, and this was 1984. It's cheesy. I'm sure the score, the music, because I know there was a lot of electronic music in that, because she was the cellist and the computer would respond by playing music back, and electronic music in the mid 80s was very computer and artificial sounding. So and
it was Giorgio Moroder, so it was very much that way.
Yes. But no, I'm glad you picked that one, because it didn't even come across my mind, and I know I would have heard about it if I hadn't included this one. So I know.
Well, there you go.
She'll be very happy to know you're representing the Electric Dreams fan club out there on this list.
Right. All two of us.
Well, I'm gonna go. I'm staying in that same era with a movie that I remember loving as a kid, watching it again in college and saying, this isn't the movie that I remember. This seems like really dull. Why was this movie so exciting? There's the pacing seems really slow. There's what's going on with this? And I haven't revisited it since because I'm just worried that it's going to continue to fall apart. But it's a movie that's just so many people love, 1982's Tron. So where we have, Jeff Bridges as a computer, a game developer whose games were stolen from him, and he's trying to, hack into the games to prove that he's the one that created them. And there's a device that, basically scans him and puts him into the computer. And so we've got this big quest inside a computer with just, amazing visuals. And that's what I remember as a kid. And of course, you've got the bike chase, game, all of those things that were really thrilling. But in between that, there was a lot of story that I didn't remember as a kid that seemed to drag for me. So I'm torn because I feel like I should give it another chance because now my expectations are on the other end of the spectrum and I'm not expecting this great, action-packed thrill ride that I was back in college, and it was not there. But I think it's a more interesting exploration of, the character of Flynn and on his quest. So I'm torn. I know they did a sequel to it about 10 years ago that was all right. But to me, this is when you think people versus computer, because our main character Flynn is going up against the master control program that he's got to shut down. So that's sort of the, again, in the early 80s, we've got people versus, computers that are going to try to take over the world.
Yeah, it was. It's a movie. I feel like I revisited it sometime right before the sequel was released, and it really is kind of a little slow. I guess that's really its biggest fault is the story is not overly involving and it's a little slow. It's interesting. I certainly find it interesting. And man, did I play that video game a lot when I was a kid. I loved it, even though I really stunk at, you could pick the different, I don't know how many different worlds, quote unquote, that you could go into, but there were some I was really bad at. But the light cycles, I just loved being in the light cycles.
Oh yeah, that's you think Tron? It's the light cycles and then the the disc.
Yeah, throwing the discs at each other, and that's the level I always sucked at. It was terrible. I was so terrible at that. But it's a great game. The movie I think just stands out because of what it represents for CG filmmaking and the interesting things that developed from that. I mean, it really took everything a step forward, and so it's a really gorgeous film to look at, even if it is a little slow. But yeah, I really do think that it does have a place in cinematic history. I thought the sequel was an interesting idea, getting Jeff Bridges involved again, which I thought was kind of cool. So yeah. It's I'm glad to see it on this list. I had it written down as a backup, so I'm glad it's out there.
Okay.
All right, for my second choice, I'm going with a more recent film that I think is it's an incredibly, incredibly strong Pixar film that really kind of, I think it was good when I saw it, and I feel like it's improved with age, and it's WALL-E from 2008. Now, it's really tricky, the balance between man versus computer or man versus machine, because it's kind of a computer too. So I was really kind of trying to walk that line, trying to find computers as much as I could that didn't have a physical presence. Now, technically, the film is mostly robots, but technically, when they get to the ship, when Wally and Eve get to the ship and they have the plant and all of that, you meet the passengers on the ship who are all incredibly obese because the microgravity on the spaceship, and two, the robots do everything for them. So that's a fun and insightful bit of humanity. But the ship is under control of this computer autopilot named Otto, and who is kind of evil, and it's really trying to stop this plant from being discovered so it can go on ruling everything. And it's a great bit of fun watching Otto, especially when the ship's captain is trying to take her down and everything. And also the design, which has a little bit of a HAL look with kind of this this
Yes.
eye that's moving around. But my favorite part is that Sigourney Weaver does the voice of Otto. And it's like, what a great nod that is to films like Alien, where she was in and she was talking to the ship's computer all the time. I absolutely loved it. And so that's my next choice, Wall-E.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen that in a long time because I so much enjoyed the first half of that movie and then just felt that it got really preachy. And when we get to, the passengers on the ship, and I need to revisit it again and just sort of know that it takes sort of a tonal shift from what was like a great, like almost silent movie in the beginning half of with Wall-E and Eve, just the two of them, that I need to give that one a chance again. I did have a lot of fun with that. I just needed to set aside, some things that I was not expecting that film to throw at me with, statements about, consumerism and all of those things. But no, it's definitely a classic. And yeah, the issue of, the relationship between people and machines, and when we start giving them sort of we hand over authority of certain things to them, and how that can lead to dangerous things. Definitely.
Yeah, really interesting.
And that sort of ties in with my next pick of when we hand things over to computers, that things can go really wrong. And that's, when Matthew Broderick hooks up his, computer to a phone and starts dialing up numbers in 1983's War Games, where we have the Whopper who's running simulations and can't tell the difference between a game and reality and is possibly going to blow up the world. This is, again, as a teenager in the 80s, Matthew Broderick was like the every teen, every boy could identify with him and being that social outcast and love to play video games, and the idea of being able to hack in to play some games before they were released, was such a thrilling idea. And then to see just his hacker skills at work, so many great things that he does when he gets locked into when he's in NORAD and gets locked into a room, and he's able to use a tape recorder to record things, and the keypad entries, so many things where you're like, yes, I could do that. Yeah, that's easy. But then, again, a movie that does get a little bit, preachy at the end, like, oh, the only way to win is to not play. Yes. But for me, when I think, computers in fighting against people, this is the first one that comes to my mind.
That is the first steal, which surprisingly we've made it this far with the first steal.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive. Yes, that is a movie that, man, did I love, and I watched a lot as a kid. And I wonder, I haven't seen it in forever, but I wonder how it holds up. When's the last time you watched that?
Oh, it's been a lot. I don't even know that I've watched it with my kids. I may have tried when they were maybe like 10 years ago, and they were just like, no, not interested. But I don't think I can't recall seeing it in a really long time. So it's, yeah. So
I mean, it's John Badham, who I think had a great stretch in that era, so it may still hold up. I wonder if it holds up.
I watch it with the kids, see what they think of. This was back before we had the internet. These are what our computers were like. That's what technology was like in the 1900s. Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's a fantastic choice. For my final one, I'm going to go to one of my backups that I was really torn if I should use or not. But I at this point now I have to use it, so we'll see. I think based on what I said in Wall-E, I think that it still holds up, and it is, of course, the classic, The Terminator, which is really just an absolutely fantastic film. One of my favorites. I love the first two in the franchise. And, again, it's man versus machine, but we do have the computer, which is Skynet. And Skynet is this system that, we build and it takes over and becomes self-aware and basically destroys us. And 6 films in now, or 5, 6, I can't remember. Let's see, 3, 4, 5 films, a TV show, and a 6th film coming.
Yeah, 6th film coming, which is Is this another one of those where, similar to Halloween, where they're going to just sort of eradicate the other pieces of the franchise that they don't like to reset some things in the story? I don't know. I thought I had heard something about James Cameron saying we're sort of cleaning the slate on this one.
What I read about it is that they're wiping out Genesis. I think that's all he said, that they're pretending didn't happen. I don't know. I honestly don't know, though. I'm curious because I think that the previous film was pretty terrible too. I think I love Terminator 3, but I know it has a lot of people who hate it. Probably more than like it. So I don't know. I'm curious how far back they're going to actually kind of clean the slate, as it were. But they did just start filming. They might be done by now, but they started filming in June. So I don't know. It's a big action film. It could still be going. The first image that was released didn't give me hope, but we'll see. But regardless, the first film was brilliant. It's one that I've always loved, and I just love the concept of Skynet, this computer system that ends up creating these robots that will destroy us. So that's my final pick.
That's what happens when robots become self-aware, right? They decide that they're better than us and they don't need us, and they can do a better job on things.
They either make your appliances come to life,
yes,
or they make killer robots.
Yes. Okay. So Killer Robots ties into my final pick, and I'm surprised we have not had more steals, because this is one I thought for sure would have been on your list. 2 weeks ago, I talked about Alex Garland, and so I'm coming back to him with 2014's Ex Machina, which was his first film that he directed. And this is, I don't think I have to give spoiler alerts since it's been 4 years, but we've got, Oscar Isaac is a sort of brilliant computer, programmer, and he has, cracked the code to AI, and he has a contest and gets one of his employees to come and participate in what he calls a Turing test, and that's the test to see if you can tell the difference between a computer program and a person, and if you can't tell the difference, that computer is able to basically mimic, a person well enough that you would say it's self-aware. And things start to take a twist for the dark side, and the computer, or the robot Ava, is manipulating everybody, and things get really messy there at the end. It's, to me, a just really solid film. You've got Oscar Isaac, Domhnall Gleeson, and I think I had read they were shooting this, and both of them had known that they had been cast in The Force Awakens, but couldn't tell anybody, and so they had no idea that they were in The Force Awakens until they showed up.
Are you kidding?
On set to shoot for that. And they were like, what? Because they couldn't talk about being cast in it. And then Alicia Vikander as Ava. So just for me, the type of science fiction film that I love, because it's so smart and takes some really clever twists, and just solid performances all around. One of my favorites of the past few years. I loved it. It was a great one. I finally got around to watching Annihilation 2, which I also really enjoyed. I think that Garland has a really interesting voice in cinema right now, and the science fiction directions that he's been going, I really enjoy. So that's a great pick. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Garland is going to do next, because I think he's really on a winning streak right now. Oh, yeah. I think, he has decided he's going to do the movies he wants to do, and I think he does some challenging things. Annihilation was one that my wife just watched. She said, she said, "Was this in theaters? I don't remember this being around very long." And it wasn't. And this was Annihilation was, I think, released here in the States, and then was like straight on Netflix right around the same time, because it is just a really challenging film that goes in directions that completely unexpected, and is a very difficult film to watch at the end, very unsettling. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he comes up with next. So
that's great. Yeah. It's a solid one. So cool. Well, those are our lists. So all right, man.
List. Yeah, I thought for sure I had to go back and check to make sure you guys hadn't discussed any of these on the main show, because that's sort of one of our rules, right? We don't do move. And I'm surprised. I mean, looking at this whole list, you guys haven't done we haven't done
Electric Dreams. I can't believe it.
There's a series right here. Yeah, I was really surprised with Tron and War Games and Terminator. I know you did Terminator 2 on a speakeasy, but yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't done any others from that franchise. So, so what are we going to do next week? We've got 2010.
Which I have not seen in a long time, but I remember sweaty John Lithgow in a spacesuit, like freaking out.
Yeah.
I remember Roy Scheider and Jupiter and
his dolphin swimming pool. I still never get that.
That's about all it's we don't have I mean, Hal's there, but we don't have.
Hal's not there. Sal is there.
Oh, Sal is there. Okay.
Yeah, but a very minor part of the story. It's an interesting remake. We'll talk about it next week. But what should we do for our lists with this?
Try to think what the main thrust of the plot is to give us some key points to move on from there for list options.
I think I think we can certainly hit turns in actors' careers, because Roy Scheider had a really fantastic run in the 70s, and is right around this point where he his career seemed to shift and kind of change direction, and some might say go downhill a little bit.
The decline of Roy Scheider thanks to 2010. Okay.
So we could do the films that shifted actors' careers. That's a very obscure list, but it could be fun.
Yeah. Okay.
We could do, let's see, we could do, sticking with our science fiction stuff, we could do, anomalies in space, where they're trying to investigate some strange thing that's happening somewhere in space that they're not sure what it is.
Oh, that works. Okay. All right. So we've got turning points in actors' careers for the worse. Is that with we're going to say turns that sort of the when their career went off the cliff?
Well, we could do that, or do we want to also have it just to allow ourselves a little more flexibility?
Okay,
just in case.
That sounds good. And then anomalies in space.
Yeah, space anomalies.
Okay.
And let's see, we could do movies with dolphins.
Well, is there, because this was the 80s, right? Late 80s.
Oh, we should totally do Cold War, Russia,
I was going to say
US,
there's some Russia-US stuff in there, as I recall, as well, some Cold War tensions. Okay.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah, Cold War tensions.
Okay.
All right, films that shifted actors' careers, space anomalies, and Cold War tensions.
There we go.
Those are our options. We'll get those posted up on Discord so everybody can vote on them. Otherwise, man, that's it.
Yeah. That was good talking to you. Glad you have your voice back.
Oh, man, me too. There's nothing worse than sounding like this all the time. So it was like, at least it came back to record a show.
All right. So you've got 2010 coming. Now wait. So you've got 2010. So then that's the end of that series, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then moving on into that Was it the
The Planet of the Apes
The
series.
Planet of the
yeah.
Apes series, yes. Okay. All right. Oh,
Another franchise that kicked off 50 years ago. So.
That's right. And be spending quite a bit of time there for a while, I imagine. Okay.
Just 5 shows. We're only doing the original 5 movies. We're not getting into any of the modern films. Well, we didn't want to jump into the film board because the film board had already talked about 2 of the Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's
so,
right.
And neither of us really wanted to talk about Tim Burton's Abomination. So
Okay. So I'd say, yeah, go with the originals. That sounds like, it's been a long time since I watched that. I think like on WGN when I was growing up, they were doing like over one summer, it was like every Saturday they were doing one. And I remember watching those, and it gets really weird as you get further into the franchise there, as I recall.
it's, and cheaper. Like the budgets just keep dropping. So
Yes. Okay. Well, all right. So we've got that coming up after 2010 for everybody to look forward to.
yeah, and then our film board this month, we'll be talking about later in the month, the Happy Time Murders.
Oh my!
Can't wait.
Just we need to make an agreement that nobody is taking any of their kids to this movie. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, right.
On this one, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna get going with my weekend here. It's always a pleasure talking with you about movies.
Likewise, all you Patreon supporters, once again, thank you so much for contributing and helping us out. And until then, happy Saturday. Talk to you later.
Hondo.